Well, I cannot be more pleased to be joined by an incredible team that are a part of our team, 24 Hours Nothing But Net. Kelly Gramlich, the all-time great Clemson player who set all kinds of three-point shooting records, may have been part of the definition of shoot till your arm falls off and where the origin of it came from. And then there's Eric Lain. I don't know what kind of alignment he was, but I have seen him on coverage.
A really good one. A really good one. How about that?
All ACC.
Listen, you guys, every time I turn on your podcast, I'm always fascinated by the number of shows that you two have put out together, especially in the football space. It's quite remarkable. What number are you on?
Mac, what number are we on? I think we just put out 282, but in, we're getting into kind of the 280s. We're getting close to 300, actually, Mac. We need to plan something. We're bad.
That's right.
Well, we want to pop the cork on that because that would be quite a milestone in that space. That's just amazing. Kelly, you've been a first-time caller, long-time supporter of 24 Hours Nothing But Net. EMAC we had on last year. And, this was my producer, BMAC's suggestion that we get the both of you on together because you're such a great team on the air in your podcast and on SiriusXM radio. So, Kelly, thank you so much. You both are Clemson athletes. You both have experienced Clemson life. EMAC, tell me a little bit about your experience with Clemson life and running into my guy recently.
That's right. That's right. Well, I'll start with that. We're sitting in Clemson and I had never been to the Shepherd Hotel, which if you don't know about that, look it up. It's just an amazing, organization, initiative where there's this beautiful hotel in the middle of downtown Clemson. And when you walk in, it's like you're in another place. I mean, it is not Clemson at all. Maybe Greenville where KG lives, but it isn't little old Clemson. And then it's taken a step further because you see the folks that are working, that are busting their tail with service and front desk and all these different things. And it's students from the Clemson Life program. And I was sitting there, we got some breakfast, and then I just see little Frankie beat bopping by, and he comes in, and I go up to him and give him a big hug. And he had his headphones on, he was jamming out, just having such a great time. And it's Debbie, it's something that is, it's not personal because I don't have like any family or anything like that, but it is personal, and it means a lot to me. At a very young age, I had a friend, so I guess it is personal. I'm backtracking. I had a best friend who his brother had Down syndrome, and I was, in elementary school, and I was, just introduced to it in a very young age, and at a time, back then where it wasn't celebrated, where it wasn't, something that was celebrate anything. I mean, it was almost like get away from me type of thing, and I didn't know any better. I loved the kid, and we had so much great relationships, stories of playing games, video games outside, all these things. And so to me, that was just normal. He's just a normal kid. And, then as you get older and you start to see it, and thank goodness things have changed dramatically. I just always have found such a calmness, a joy, in people in the Down syndrome community, and love to be around them, and just all folks with learning disabilities. And, for me to get to Clemson and then finding that this program was emerging very quickly, I wanted to be a part of it any way that I could, whether that was just, support by talking about it, mentoring and hanging out. And then, as a GA, developing an athletic program to where Clemson Life went to every single sports team and got to do something. It's grown even more since I've left. So for me, it's so just personal. It's such a big initiative in my life. So every time I go home and I get to see those young men and women, it makes everything in the world okay.
Kelly, what's your experience been? I just love the whole concept of the culture of Clemson, the athletic culture, but also how Clemson Life just weaves inside the fabric of the whole community.
I think that's a great way to put it, Debbie. They're a part of Clemson. Clemson wouldn't be the same without Clemson Life. And I remember we had a manager on the basketball team named Hope, who was really, and probably still is, famous around Clemson. Everyone knows Hope. Hope walks by, and she's more famous than back in our day, Mac, than, Eric Lain or football players walking around. Everyone knows her. And so that was some of my first experience with Clemson Life, and she was one of our managers. She worked so hard. Sometimes she'd stay late after practice. I'd give her a ride home, whatever it is. Or even more impressive to me, she'd be sitting there waiting for the bus, and I'd say, Hope, do you want to ride? And she's like, no, I got this. And I know what I'm doing. I got my bus, whatever. So she just had it all planned out. And so I think that was my first exposure. And then really as a Clemson alum, and I think this has become even more of a thing over the past decade, if you will, as a Clemson alum, it just makes you proud what Clemson is doing with Clemson Life. And I think being exposed even more through you, Debbie, and your son, Frankie, of course, and all the work that you're doing to bring awareness to Special Olympics and people with special needs, but also President Clements having a daughter with special needs, and she's in Clemson Life and she's involved. I mean, the awareness is at an all-time high, and there are people that come from all over the country to come to Clemson Life and to have that kind of experience. And so as a Clemson alum, it really makes you proud. I think that's the word that comes to mind.
Well, you both are great ambassadors for the university and your respective sports, Kelly with basketball and E with football. So it's really kind of cool when you can see all of the paths that you've walked on campus transfer over to what you're doing today, as we're all colleagues of ESPN and supportive of each other in lots of different ways. When I think about Clemson, all the years that I was going to Clemson as a player way back, but also in the years that I was even covering Kelly's teams, I thought I knew Clemson. I'd come in on Perimeter Road, I'd go to Little John, I'd go to the hotel, go back to Little John, go back on Perimeter Road. And I thought that was Clemson to me. And then I saw it through Frankie's eyes, and I'm on campus and I'm walking around and I'm eating in the dining halls. And I felt like a student at times early on myself when he was first getting acclimated to the campus life. But, you mentioned Hope, and Hope was one of my first friends when we moved to Mount Pleasant, her family, because of the Banks family and their reputation. And then Hope is just this amazing little fireball. We've already had her on the live stream to interview her every year. And she always talks about sneaking into the president's box on football Saturdays, which is just remarkable to me. But you're right, Kelly, when you talk about the bus and thinking about the incredible responsibility that they all have shared. What do you think as athletes, when you were athletes at Clemson, what do you think were the most important lessons you learned from watching the student athlete, the Clemson Life students?
I think it was just, it gave you such great perspective, right? You're so in your own bubble. You're thinking about practice, you're thinking about the game that Sunday, you're thinking about your scout, you're thinking about what you need to do, all these different things. And I think every college kid is kind of in their own bubble. But when you are introduced and around kids in Clemson Life who are just, they're not concerned with all those trivial things that you're concerned with. They're just concerned with living their best life. And like I said, Hope just doing what she does, just being kind of that light on campus. So I thought it was such great perspective. Even if I had a bad practice, Debbie, if I got yelled at, if something happened, right? Hope was there to just say, she wanted to talk about Justin Bieber. That's all she wanted to talk about. So
that's so true.
She's a believer. I mean, we all know this. So that was just great perspective. And Debbie, I love too that because of Frankie coming to Clemson, when we talk about Clemson people at ESPN, we've got Mac, me, Roy Philpott. I feel like you're kind of one of us. I know you are Wolfpack till you die. I know.
Yeah, she almost came through that screen right there when you said that.
Yeah, your second school is Clemson, and I love it.
Oh yeah, I'm totally. I even told Amanda Butler, like if I was doing it all over again, it'd be hard to say no to Clemson based on all the things that I know and what I've learned and just the relationship that I have with Jim and Beth Clements. I mean, it's just crazy to think that you can be on a college campus and really know the president, that the president is around. I think that leadership is really, really amazing. E, you're a new parent. Kelly's getting ready to become one. I'm an old parent now. I'm waiting on grandkids one day, not anytime soon, but I'm the world that our kids are coming into or that they're living in right now is changing so much. And, during my time, we didn't know where the special education students were. Now because they were hidden somewhere, they were hidden in the school. And now that's not the case at all. As a matter of fact, diversity and inclusion are such hot buttons in daily conversation. What do you think about what your daughter is going to get ready to experience, and how do you want to raise her in a climate that is tolerant and accepting and, willing.
Yeah, it's exciting for me, to know that she is going to be around a lot of different people that don't look like her, that don't act like her, that didn't come from the same background, that might not have the same, abilities, whether in sport or just in school. And, for me, that's super encouraging, because exactly what you just said, it was the same way for us. I feel like this is a very recent, kind of change, especially just in the, special needs community, just of acceptance and again, celebrating that, and everybody being able to be included. So for me, it's something that I'm very excited about. Obviously, we are going to be very intentional as parents to let her know and understand, baby Amelia, that it's okay for people to be different. It's okay for people to think differently, have different views, different abilities, all these different things. And again, at the end of the day, we should be proud of that, because that just leads to growth. That just leads to change and leads to, again, more acceptance. So, for me especially, and I know KG too, just that is the norm, is very exciting.
Well, you guys are two incredible souls. And Kelly, on the timing of this taping, is 2 or 3 weeks from delivering her first child, which we're all very excited about. So Kelly, that means that when we do run the live stream in the driveway, you'll probably be up feeding the baby at all kinds of odd hours. You can just tune in on the live stream and then hit us up with, I'm feeding the baby at 2 o'clock in the morning, right?
That is the plan. I'm sure that's what I'll be doing. And nothing would make me happier than to watch you sink 94% of your free throws while I'm up feeding this baby. Yeah. So I want to shout you out, Debbie, because look,
it's 93. Honestly, I can't take the extra.
All right, whatever.
You cannot believe how valuable that extra making those shots late and not missing for the amount of total shots that it requires to finish. So it does matter, that 1%.
Okay, well, we'll go down to 93. That is insane. Even some of the, I would like to see Caitlin Clark go hit 93% of her free throws for 24 hours. I'm not sure she could do it. So just shout out to you, Debbie, and I'll be sitting there watching you sink free throw after free throw.
Well, Kelly, it is muscle memory and the ability to self-correct. And then I have that part, and then the fitness.
But then you get to hour 22.
The fitness is the hard part, because when you start to get to fatigue, that's when things break down, right? Your focus goes, and then, the emotion starts to creep in, because it's just I know I sort of know in year 5 the stages that come along with the task. But I will tell you too this, because I don't think I say this enough about what I actually am doing to train, because I know as athletes, you guys will totally get it. I have this free throw burpee routine that I do in the driveway. So I'm going to tell you what it is, because I've been doing it. This is my 3rd year, and I really believe this is the key for me, for overall fitness and focus and being able to complete the task. Because the first thing to go are the legs.
Sure.
Right. So the bar that you put in your door frame to do pull-ups on, that's in the driveway. So I go free throw, burpee, free throw, burpee. I do 10 sets of 25 makes. If I miss the free throw, I still do the burpee. So at the end of that workout, I've made 250 free throws, but I've probably done about 280 burpees.
Oh, wow.
And so it is by far this crazy idea, and it is a combination of I was trying to double up, like when in my day we did one exercise at a time. Today you have to do complex layered.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I'm like, all right, what can I do in the driveway that is 2 things? And I came up with that, because I really would rather do that than ride the bike. The bike is tough. Right. Yeah. But so I go 10 sets of 25, and then next week I'll be at 4 sets of 50. And then the week of I'll do 2 sets of 100. And that's when I know I'm ready. So I just keep doing it until we get closer. And
I have my post baby workout routine ready to go now.
Yeah, I changed the time on the dish. So right now I'm at 6 seconds on the ball return. So
Oh, so
it's
you got to get up because it's going to hit you in the face.
free throw and then burpee and get up and get ready. I set it on 4 seconds for the first set yesterday. And after I finished the set, I was like, I'm not going to make 10 sets if I keep going that pace. So I just got to complete the task.
That's
Yeah.
right.
But when you think about your days as an athlete, there were a couple of exercises that we know we all hated. We absolutely hated. What was that? What in football was when coach blew the whistle, you're like, ah.
Listen, I'm a lineman. Okay. We don't like to run. So anytime we've run, it's brutal. But one in particular, we would run 400. So literally just sprints, like laps around the stadium at a certain time. And we always had this one guy. I'm not going to name him. I'm not going to embarrass him, but he couldn't make the time. And so we had to keep going. And we're just like, oh my gosh, it's the worst. So distance running for me was brutal.
What about you, Kelly?
Yeah. Well, every basketball player knows the get on the line situation, which has happened to all of us. I would say, Mac, something similar for us was a 6-4-6, which I'm sure you know, Debbie. A down and back 6 times, and then you backpedal down and back 4, and then you go 6 again. And you got to get it in 2:05 or whatever. So that was always fun, especially when it's at 5 a.m. You never want to hear during a practice, though, all right, we got a 6-4-6. That you've really messed up at that point. That should just be a conditioning situation. But yeah, I'll never do another 6-4-6 in my life. I can promise you that.
Well, we all, I could just let you guys know, as you get to be my age, and you're several decades younger than me, but when you start getting older, your mind doesn't change where your athleticism was at the time, but your body does. So trying to keep up with the two can become a little bit challenging. I don't see either one of you having any issue with that. I mean, I'm holding up, so I'm sure you guys.
You're holding up, Debbie. Yeah, you're good.
Let's talk a little spring football, because I know we're right in the midst of it, and this is the right time to talk about it. And I can't think of two better than tell us a little bit about the ACC.
Come on, KG, you kick it off.
All right, let's do it. It's really interesting, Debbie. We've had quite a few guests on recently on the podcast. We're about to start our summer guest series, and the hype around Florida State right now is prevalent. Now, Clemson, of course, has run the league for the last however many years. Pitt did get in there and win a title. We don't want to take away from Pitt and what they've done. Pitt's going to be good too. But the hype around Florida State, returning Jordan Travis, returning Jared Verse on the defensive side, and just, I think they're going to be preseason at least top 10. Mac, we'll see what happens with that. And I'm so intrigued to see if people actually pick Florida State to win the league. No divisions this year, so Clemson and Florida State will play early on in September, and then could play again if they're the two best teams once it's all said and done. Florida State has not beaten Clemson since 2014. I do think that's a hump they have to get over, but I'm buying the hype to a certain extent just because there are still some question marks with Clemson. I don't know if Mac's buying the Florida State hype as much as I am, but it's going to be there, Mac.
Listen, I'm hoping for it. Let me just tell you that, because I think as a league, as the conference, we need that. We need someone else to be able to be very successful while a Clemson is, or vice versa, when Florida State was. And, we kind of saw Clemson maybe start to rise up around that time in the early 10s there. But for me, I think the biggest thing, guys, is who can be that tier 2, and can it be a team consistently? When you look at the SEC, when you look at the Big 10, when you look at the Big 12, there's these consistent teams that are right underneath maybe the title contender. The ACC, there's been a couple of years where that hasn't even existed. There's been a couple of years where it's a different random team per year. And maybe someone just comes out of nowhere and is able to do that. Can a team like Pittsburgh, can a team like North Carolina, can a team like Wake or NC State, stay there and stay in that 9 to 10, 11 win season year in and year out, and is fighting to be ranked, is fighting to be, in these New Year's 6 bowls. And when we expand to the, bigger playoff, are they fighting for those spots and getting in, not just being the ACC champion? So that's the biggest thing to me. I think this is a really impressive group coming in when you look at the Dukes, the Pitts, those type of teams, and can a team like Miami or Virginia Tech, those kind of blue blood brands, step up and really help out. So that's what I'm interested to see, because it's all great on paper, and KG and I for the next 3 months are going to be telling you how awesome it is. But when you go out of conference and you play, those leagues I just mentioned, you've got to get the dub, you've got to carry the flag, because that's how you change the perception. You have to win.
Yeah, it feels like there needs to be a perception shift because we know the football in the league is good. Last year at this time, okay, so I'm not as intimately involved in the football as you guys are. I love it as a fan. And, of course, if we were talking basketball, that's a different story for me. But last year, I remember the hype was all about all these great quarterbacks in the ACC. Like that was the theme. Everybody had a quarterback. And then as the season went on, we saw some of them get hurt or injured or just, things happen along the season. Like what's the hype this year?
Well, there were a lot of injuries last year. It's a great point, Debbie. There were a lot of guys that had the hype and fell off. And then a guy that we didn't really talk about, Drake May, comes onto the scene. And I think it kind of starts with Drake May. He's a guy who we talk with different NFL draft analysts. He could legitimately be the #1 overall pick next year. So he's in your league. And then you've got Jordan Travis as well at Florida State. Both those guys are top 5 in Heisman odds as we record this right now. So I think you have the hype there. I really think from a national perspective, people just looking at the ACC and more casually observing the ACC, the hype is the Florida State piece. Like, is Florida State going to come back to what we know they were? They fell so far, and now they had a 10-win season. And we talked a lot about Clemson. From a Clemson perspective, those are the games you want to be great. Clemson, I remember back in the beginning of the 2010s, Mac, we were talking about this. Clemson FSU was like Bama LSU. It was that hyped up. It was a top 5 matchup. We haven't had that in a very long time. Can we get that in September, bring some more hype to the league, and then can we get it again in the ACC championship? That would be huge.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the biggest thing.
Florida State, do you think they can come into Clemson and win? I mean, what would it take for them to do that? Because listen, I've been to many football games in there, and I don't know how anybody wins in the fourth quarter, especially at night in that building or in that stadium. It's crazy good in there.
Yeah, I will say they've done it before. They've done it before.
They could lose that game, Debbie, theoretically, and then they can play again in the ACC title. Yeah. One loss team goes to the playoff. I think that's very possible. But yeah, I agree. Winning in Death Valley, Mac, you know that is not easy.
It's not. And I agree with you 100%, KG. I think that's the biggest hype. Are we going to see that game twice? Are we going to see that game, meaning the winner the second time they play is playing in the college football playoff? Or even crazier is the loser somehow still sneaking in, like we saw in 2020 with Notre Dame and Clemson. So that, I think, is the most ideal situation. That's why we're so excited, about these divisions kind of being wiped off. Because even if it isn't Clemson, Florida State, if either team falls off, we still, at the end of the year, will have the 2 best teams. We'll have the best product possible for the ACC. And hopefully, that's a couple of top 10 teams, maybe top, 8 or 5 teams. Who knows what could happen. So that, I think, is what everybody's really excited about. It, of course, is going to start with the Noles and Tigers. But then, as I mentioned, is there another team who really wants to play spoiler and say, don't forget about us. Don't forget what we can do here. That's what's going to be fun to watch.
So I'm guessing that with the ACC making a decision to remove the divisions, that has to be an effort to get ready for an expanded playoff. That's just my naked eye, right? Because I don't know, but I'm just wondering, because as a fan of the game, I want to see a playoff expand, just because I want to have more games that have March Madness feel to them. I don't know how else to say it in football, but that's what I'm sort of thinking. Like, tell us the strategy or what your opinion is on that.
Yeah, well, I think, the ACC got a taste of it in 2020, as I alluded to, where it was a top 5 matchup. You've got Clemson, you've got Notre Dame, both made the playoff. Notre Dame, gets kind of embarrassed, to be quite honest, in the ACC championship, yet still fell in at number 4. And I think everyone kind of looked around like, man, can we do this again? Is this something that we could do year in and year out? And then just with the playoff, as you mentioned, you want your best teams to have the best shot, to have that audition, to have that kind of last exclamation point. Although we've seen the committee kind of devalue conference championship games, I think it becomes more important, and obviously it does with automatic bids. So, that there was a couple of seasons there when Clemson's, doing their thing that, they're facing a 6-6 pit, in a championship game where there was others that maybe, were more compelling and things of that nature. So KG, to me, it's just about getting the best product on the field for your championship game.
Well, I feel like conferences have tried to divide their leagues into divisions equally forever, or at least since we've started having these bigger conferences, and it never, ever works. When they started the Atlantic and Coastal, they put Florida State in the Atlantic and Miami in the Coastal because they thought they'd play each other every year, and they never played for the ACC championship. So you can try all these things and it's never really going to work. You might and geography, you never know if that's going to work well either. So you might as well just have the two best teams play. And I think we're finally at that point. It took us a while to get there, but that's what the fans want to see. And so I think it is for a playoff perspective too, Debbie, but also it's better for the fan. And that's what, we know this from calling basketball and football and just being involved with ESPN, you always have to think about the fan. And so I think the ACC is doing that.
Okay, so here's the next question that you guys, the more you talk, the more I start thinking like, like I said, I'm just asking questions off the top of my head because I'm curious. So you mentioned the committee and the committee devaluing the conference championships. So, in basketball, I'm always skeptical of the committee, and geography plays a role, and I'm not going to launch into my whole soapbox on that. Kelly's heard it 100 times, but, when you work at a golf course that has committees, well, one year, you're in charge of the Greens Committee, and Kelly, you're in charge of food and beverage, okay? And you guys are golfers, members, and you're in charge of these committees, okay? And you like fast greens. So everything about the golf course has to be cut to a certain way. And Kelly, you like chicken. So everything on the menu has to reflect chicken. But then next year, 2 other people come in and they want slow greens and they like steak. So it just, you never get that consistency. So when you look at basketball committees or football committees, because I think they've got to be similar. The leader changes most likely every year, and you have different people that come in, and you don't really know what criteria they prefer over another. In basketball, I understand that's an issue. In football, it seems like it would be compounded 10 times the amount because there's 10 times the amount of people watching college football versus basketball.
Yeah. And, I think that some of that will be solved by, expanding because it becomes automatic bids, similar to, what the NCAA does on the basketball side, but it's just so big and seeding truly can change your tournament run, when you're on that basketball side. I'm interested to see how much does that affect it in a smaller sample size with football. I think, the most important thing with this is get in, and you never know what quite could happen. You do have the kind of at-home advantage, but the way that it's laid out right now, those aren't even for the higher seeds. Those are going to be the earlier games, kind of like a play-in game, if you will. So seeding important, but I think it's a lot clearer in football who's good and who's not. And I just have to think with these automatic bids, it takes away, Ohio State didn't even play in their conference championship. They're getting in. It kind of eliminates that because if you win your championship, as it's written right now, you're playing in the playoff. You get a spot. And we would have seen, a Kansas State this year, probably not TCU. And, just to see what that would look like. So I do think the expansion will, kind of help itself with that aspect.
Yeah, I love the automatic bids. I think that's something that is helpful because humans can't necessarily mess that up, Debbie. And we know humans can mess up a lot of things. But it's hard because you want to have the right combination, both in football and basketball, of the numbers, but also the eye test. And I think, the eye test, especially on the basketball side, maybe even more on the men's side, we've started to go away from that a little more. We're putting way too much stock in what teams did in November. And that doesn't really make sense to me when we're talking about teams in mid-March. So I think it's a little more of an issue on the men's side. The women's side overall, probably because you have less mid-majors that are truly capable of competing in the NCAA tournament, it's a little easier. But I think it's just a hard process either way. And so that's where you can look at the NFL. They do divisions, they do geography. And again, that never is really great. You've got a 8-8 team playing in the playoffs. So it's hard either way, but I do think with college football, having some of those automatic bids is a really good thing.
So I love spitballing with you guys because I'm going to throw something else at you, and I want you to pick. Oh,
Amelia,
forget about all that we just talked
Please
about.
continue. Go ahead and spitball.
that's
Please
my
continue.
queen. Debbie, I got to meet her last weekend for the first time. It was magical. She's that cute. She's cuter in person, if you can believe it.
That's a pretty big smile on your face, my friend. I love it. I can't wait to meet her. She looks absolutely gorgeous.
She's the best.
Really
We got to get her
good.
right on the basketball court, but continue. Please spitball.
yeah.
Please
she's ready.
put a ball in her hands, no
Ready.
matter what she does. Let it involve
right.
a ball.
That's right.
That's my advice to all girl dads. Please put a ball in her hands.
Yeah.
So here's what I want to ask you guys. So like pick a side, or just tell me I'm way off. Like, if we go to an extended playoff, will that shorten the regular season? And if that is true, and it shortens the regular season, do we need spring and summer football?
Like,
Max
okay,
should start with that question.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think we should, and what stinks is you're going to eliminate those paycheck games, for some of those schools, right? We're not a charity, like it's a business at the end of the day. So if you eliminate some of those, that helps, because the conference is what it is. You're playing a tougher schedule. It's more enticing to play a tougher schedule. So I think just player safety wise, yes, we should, or start, paying people more, because if you're putting your life, or not your life, but your body and things like that on the line, you should be compensated if you're doing all this. And we know it's all money. We know it's a money grab. The spring football thing, that's a whole nother topic that I'm all in with. I wish that we would cross train, and maybe that's where you can make up for, hey, Furman, come down to Clemson. We'll pay you $1 million. We'll practice together, and that'll be the spring game. Clemson versus Furman, make some money, split revenue share, all those different things. I've wished for years that the NCAA would do that, because college football is the only entity in all of collegiate plus, or even high school. There's no jamboree. There's no preseason. You're just hurting each other all year long, and you can't go outside of it. So I think it's silly that it hasn't been changed, and I would love to see that.
I agree with Mac on that. I think we're seeing more year-round football. Obviously, America loves football. Mac's doing XFL. Bye, Amelia. And so to have a game, a Clemson Furman game in the middle of the spring where you're actually selling tickets, I think you could sell out Death Valley for sure if it's an actual game. And so that can make up for, you don't have to play that game in September, and then you can play another, you can play maybe one less game in the regular season, whatever it is. So I like that. I think the main thing, Debbie, for me, and we talk about football, and we talk about the money, we talk about expanding the playoff, everything. I just want to make sure that Amelia, who was just with us, has sports to play, has college sports to play 18 years from now. And that's the biggest concern. And that can open up a whole other can of worms. And I know Mac feels very passionately as well, because he's got Amelia, and Amelia's going to be a baller. So
even before that.
Well, of course. But how do we reconcile big time college football, where I want the players to be compensated as they should be? They're making millions for their universities. As you mentioned, Mac, they're putting their bodies on the line. I love college football. It's a massive business, but we have to find a way where it can all coexist, and women's hoops and women's soccer and all these different things can also thrive. And I don't know the answer necessarily, but I will say, Debbie, I do think it's very good that women's hoops is continuing to assert itself as a very watchable and sellable product when you look at 10 million people tuning into your national title game.
As long as we can score and can shoot the ball, and offense is a priority, then yes. And everything about the game needs to be through that lens, including officiating and how we build out product. Yes.
The officiating.
Shoot till your arm falls off has been a 20-year byproduct of me sitting in the director of marketing seat at Kentucky and at Ohio State for 8 years, and having coaches knock on my door and say, hey, promote my team. And I'm like, in a nice way, well, you need to win. How can I promote your product if your product isn't good? Exactly. I use this example all the time about product. If you own the grocery store and there's an end cap and there's a product there and it's got a special price on it, it's got a promotion, a 2-for-1. But if it's not a good product, it doesn't matter what the price or promotion or where you put it in the store for visibility. If it's not any good, nobody's going to buy it. It doesn't matter what you do around it to dress it up. So, you know, Caitlin Clark is a great example. Her timing is amazing on the women's side. That very similar to what Rebecca Lobo did in '95 and Diana Taurasi. I've heard her name, but I really think Rebecca and Caitlin and the way they can change the way people view the game is really, really amazing. One last thing for you guys, because I think you're both so amazing, and to bring it back full circle to Clemson Life and Frankie, and the whole reason why we're here and why we're doing the live stream and the fundraiser is about Special Olympics. And Special Olympics is such a great landing spot for families that have students with intellectual or physical disability that need a place to play. And we have benefited from it as a family, so we know exactly what it means. What's the lens for you guys on Special Olympics and where it fits and where sport fits? You know, with you both being new parents, you're going to want your kids to play. And you guys will keep it in perspective, right? My boys play. We have it in perspective here about what sport is supposed to mean for your full well-being. I want to get your take on it.
Yeah, it's man, sports is in general is so important, you know, to me and my life and the people that I've met, the experiences I've had, the lessons that I've learned. And that shouldn't be exclusive to just someone like me. That should be inclusive and available to everybody. And that takes support. So, you know, all the folks watching this, that's money, that's donations, that's all the different things, because it truly is life-changing. You know, sports, the field, the court, the rink, the arena, whatever you're in, it can change your life forever. And like I just said, that deserves to be for everybody. And that's why I'm such a big supporter of you, Debbie, and this cause.
Yeah, well said, Mac. I mean, everyone should have the opportunity to play sports. And it's something that I've already talked about with my husband. I mean, that's going to be number one is make sure he's playing sports, especially I think team sports are really important. I think one of the most important things I ever learned from playing basketball is that it's not about me. And that's the most important thing. And that's a mindset that everyone should learn and take into their life in many different aspects, that you're a part of a team, you're a part of a unit. You have a role. There's so many things that can be learned from that. I think team sports is just one of the most important things. So of course, everybody needs to have the opportunity to do that. And Debbie, you're doing great work with that, of course. And we appreciate what you're doing, bringing that awareness. I mean, you've taken your platform from playing basketball at nearly the beginning of Title IX, which my mom did too with tennis. And who knows, like you had no idea you could end up affecting so many people. So it's really cool, Debbie. And honestly, you've paved the way. So thank you for that.
Well, you guys are great teammates, and we are on several teams together. We have our ESPN team, which I'm very proud to be a part of that organization with you guys, because you guys are also, you're just so great at what you do. And then to be a part of the Clemson team, which I will self-appoint myself, self-appointing, you know, because I do have a special place in my heart for Clemson, for Jim Clements and Beth and what they've created, and all the way through the attitude and the culture that permeates the entire university. And any kid that gets to go to school there right now, or any athlete that gets to play sports there, has the chance to be around some of the best people in the game in their respective area. And so it's just really remarkable. And you two are a great product of that. And I'm so grateful for your friendship and your time and your support of this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.
Appreciate you.